For the love of games.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to the Pixel Attack podcast. I am your host, Steven Messner, and I am so excited because, as humans, we put a lot of emphasis on special anniversaries. There's like your Sweet 16.
I always forget my anniversary.
Oh, really?
You gotta buck the trend.
Yeah, fight the system, man.
That's right.
No, but there's the Sweet 16, there's turning 21, there's turning 50, all of these big anniversaries. Well, today we're going to add number 17 to that list because episode 17 of the Pixel Attack podcast, mark it down, people, because it will go down in history as the day that
about
we...
it in history books.
History
years from now.
books. Yeah, your
Books won't
grandkids
be
will
a thing,
open...
but they'll be making books just to talk about this day.
Your grandkids will open up their hollow books and... right here in the page number 1, the biggest event in Canadian/American history,
That's right.
is the day that we welcomed Al Nilsen to the show. Al, welcome to the show.
You know, when I had to choose a number of the podcast I wanted to be on, 17 was it.
When I heard you guys on day 1, and I said, which episode am I going to guest star?
Yeah. He's like, I'll wait till about 15
right
to contact them, and then
Al.
we'll line it up for 17.
This is why you're the king.
Yes, so Al Nilsen, this is the man behind the Hedgehog. He was the marketing director at SEGA from 89 to 93. He helped transform Mr. Needlemouse into this puckish rogue that we all love, helping coin phrases like Genesis does what Nintendo don't, welcome to the next level, and popularizing the super popular SEGA Scream campaign, SEGA! And the man whose story is now immortalized in the pages of Console Wars, a book by Blake J. Harris, which you all should read. It's so fantastic.
Yeah.
And soon to be portrayed on the big screen. What's up? And who for more than 20 years has just, or more than 20 years later rather, continues to just be this dynamo of marketing and branding. If you cut him, he will certainly bleed blue, Mr. Al Nilsen. Welcome.
Pixel Attack round of applause.
Yay!
By one person. Oh, there we go.
Yay.
Thanks for coming out, guys.
It's so great to have you here. Thank you for accepting our humble plea to join us for this next hour as we talk about you, basically. This show is all about you,
Man
buddy.
of the hour. I know.
Yeah,
Now
you
he's
are the
nervous.
man
A lot
of
of
the hour.
pressure.
Don't scare him. Don't scare him, Steve.
That's
Don't
right.
let us down. Don't let us down. No, I'm just kidding. You'll be fine.
The pressure's
Drives
on.
under pressure.
Yes. So just for everyone who's listening, for our podcast listeners, all that, just a heads up, today's format is going to be, we're just throwing it out the window, man. We need to make good on this whole situation we found ourselves in.
We don't want to embarrass ourselves in front of Al.
that's a much more rash way of saying what I was slowly going around. We're tossing the whole thing out the window. The playbook is gone. We burned it. Today we're just going to be talking with Al. We're going to be talking about marketing and his time at SEGA. We're going to be talking about Sonic and also we'll be fielding your questions too. So if you're listening to this and you're in Twitch, you can start pumping questions into the chat right now. Travis will be on call. He will be writing down the good ones and saving them for the end. And then at the end, we'll spout off some of those and we'll also have more of a free-form Q&A session for as long as Al can spare.
Can stand us.
He's already.
Oh, we lost him.
Oh, God.
All right. Time
Oh,
to
he's
death.
good. He's
3
good.
minutes.
You guys told me I wasn't boring. All that speech therapy.
Sometimes a white lie is helpful, Steve.
That's
It's just
true.
I couldn't bear to hurt your self-esteem.
Some false hopes better than
Someone's
no
as
hope.
fragile as you are. You gotta do what you gotta do.
So, Al, welcome to the show. Why don't you, in your own words, tell people a little bit about who you are and what you're up to now, and take it away.
Hey, I'm Al. I've been in the video game and marketing business, probably going on 35 years. Probably best way to talk about it is going back to the Atari days and the Coleco days and the Intellivision days.
The good stuff.
And all of those. And then a little thing with SEGA, where
A blip on the radar.
a blip on the radar launched a thing called Sega Genesis. Let Americans know what a hedgehog was. Immortalized blue hedgehogs for the world.
For the world.
And worked with MTV and Viacom on, crazy people like Beavis and Butthead. Imagine going from Sonic to Beavis. But for the last, 20 years, I've been running my own marketing company, helping companies launch new products, develop new products, strategize about how to go and build their business, and everything from toys and games and sporting goods and apps and just a whole bunch of different things. And now my new career of being on podcasts.
Yes, that's right. Being a guest on like Z-level podcasts, which is an excellent business strategy.
Hey man, you got to start somewhere.
Z-level, I should apologize.
Yeah.
Z-level if you're American.
Those things, it's not like a Venn diagram. There's not a lot of overlap between former marketing directors and famous podcast stars. So you got to start from the beginning, but that's okay because Al, you will rise to the top. I have faith in you. You know, if you started a podcast, I would tune into that in a heartbeat.
I would subscribe.
That would be great.
And
I'm sure.
I just want to say,
I've had some ideas, but the right thing hasn't come around yet.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Well, we're here. If you need any of our non-expertise,
I know.
Hey man, we are
advice.
Yeah, no, we're podcasting experts. You can't say that.
Apparently,
You were reading
an
an excerpt from Console Wars to us earlier, and you have a fantastic reading voice. You should read Sonic fan fictions as a podcast.
No,
Oh,
don't
boy.
tell him that exists. That's there's no such thing as that.
Yes, I did, Nilsen said tentatively, but with no hint of embarrassment. Kalinsky slapped his desk.
Ooh.
Perfect.
You know, I felt like I was there
quote.
for that one sentence. I saw that mahogany desk. I'm assuming it was mahogany.
Get your copy of Console Wars.
Right,
Console
so
Wars at your
if we
local
haven't-
stores.
Yes, if we haven't talked about it enough, Console Wars. That should be required reading for everybody in the chat room and everybody listening to this episode of the podcast. It is so good. I actually can't remember how I found out about Console Wars. I think it was just one day on Audible, and I was like, this looks like a cool book. I'll download this. And it blew me away. It was an incredible book. Blake J. Harris is an ultra-talented author. And Al Nilsen and Tom Kalinske and EBVB, all these people at Sega were so personable, and you guys made such good stories. Like, it was so, I don't know, it was such a good true life tale.
I've got a question for you, Al, because I only know what life was like at Sega for you guys based off of what I read in Console Wars. So I want to know, when you were hired on, how much of your training was dedicated to spitting badass one-liners, like all the time? Because the way Blake makes it seem when I read Console Wars, it's like half the time you guys are developing this empire, and then the other half you were like doing a table read for future Die Hard, because it was just badass one-liner after badass one-liner in Console Wars, and it was so much fun to read.
Well, I'm a professional marketer, so what do you expect?
That's true.
Badass one-liners is his
I got very
currency.
self-conscious about how I speak on a day-to-day basis after reading that.
Well, you know, it's all the media training that you go to go and speak with, you know, journalists, not just from the U.S. At Sega, we were talking with, you know, people from all around the world, and you needed to go and be able to say something that would go and be memorable. You know, I remember once I was being taught by a PR person, and it's kind of like, hello, bullet point number 1. It is nice to be, bullet point number 2, with you.
Oh, no.
Today I'd like to talk to you about bullet point number 3 and bullet point number 5. Are you having a good time? Can I get you a cup of coffee, bullet point number 6? And you know that it's not the way to go and do that. It's how to go and create stories, and how to go and do something that people will go and find memorable, and that's the thing that when they go back to their hotel room after walking 10 miles at, you know, CES or E3, they're going to go and say, I love that story that Al or Tom or Ellen Beth told. And that's what they're going to go and write about. And who aren't they going to go write about? Well, the guys in the booth next door with that plumber guy. So, you know, those are the things that we always had to do. And, you know, one of the things that Blake talked about in the book is, like, you know, I remember once talking to, you know, I was doing an interview, and it was going along, and the journalist looked like he had, you know, was about ready to fall asleep because it was like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and he had been going at it all day. And I went and I said, you know, I'm really excited that Nintendo is telling people to purchase Sega Genesis. And
Yeah, I
I've
remember.
never seen a reporter, you know, wake up so fast. And the thing was, they were. Because if you pulled out the Nintendo guide to how to choose a video game system, it said choose the system with the most games. And, it was 6 for Super NES, and we had, 50? And so it was very nice that Nintendo was helping us to go and sell Sega Genesis systems.
I was trying to get some people up to speed on Al, so for people who hadn't read the book, and I said, get Console Wars, specifically read Chapter 11, Chapter 15, and Chapter 16. And it was Chapter 15 where you used Nintendo's logic against them, basically. I was like, man, this is great marketing right here.
Well, and yeah, like me personally, like I've never really had an exposure to sort of behind the scenes marketing strategies or techniques, nor have I really read a book about them. So reading a book, and that's probably, I think, the greatest strength of Console Wars as a book, is that it focuses so hard on the actual strategies and the marketing angle towards it all. It could have just been like this cute, fluffy narrative tale, but instead it was really informative, and like I feel like I walked away from that book learning things, and especially some of the things you guys pulled. Like there were just moments in that book that were so like I had to put it down or like press pause on the audiobook and just sit back for a moment and be like, I can't believe they did that. That's incredible. Like the cojones that you guys had at Sega were just amazing. So
and it really didn't feel like that's what we were doing. It felt like, this is what we needed to do. And it was all strategic. Every time we wanted to go and do things. And if you looked at things that we did, people would think that, these guys are insane. What drugs are they taking, and can I have some of them? But they all fit into our strategic plan of how to go and sell more Genesis units, how to sell, more software, and how to put Nintendo out of their misery. That is really what drove us. And more important than that was we just had a phenomenal team. Tom is the best boss that I've ever had in my life. And along with the rest of the team, we're friends to this day. Whether it's, Ellen Beth Van Buskirk, Diane Fernacier, Shinobu Toyota, Madeline Schroeder. It was the greatest team that I think we've all said that we've ever worked with. And we could never go and say, it can't be done. We'd go and figure out how it would be done. And especially as I'd come up with a crazy idea, and they said, okay, let's do it.
That's awesome.
And we'd figure out how to go and do it, which was, pulling off, impossible things. Whether it was something that was, 6 to 8 months in its planning session, or having to go and redo your entire sales strategy, on the eve of CES in a hotel business center. Those, whatever it took, we would do.
Right. I mean, even like one of my favorite stories from that book was the whole Sonic Tuesday conception, because that was a plan that, if I'm not mistaken, you guys threw out the playbook on that the day before you were supposed to present it, was it not?
Oh yeah.
And then you came up with a
this is literally industry changing.
That was the first global launch at the time for video games. Am I right?
Absolutely. And
so
we had a video game. We had a launch plan for Sonic 2 that I'm happy to say it was the best video game launch plan that had ever been done. And Madeline and I were getting ready to present it the next day to the executive committee to go and say, here's what we're going to go and do. And Matt and I were talking, and I just went and I said, it's not good enough. And I just couldn't, and it was great, but it wasn't good enough. Or as we said, it wasn't Sonic worthy. It actually turned into a shouting match between Matt and myself, who were best friends at the time, and still are today, I need to say, because it was like, we can't do this. It's tomorrow. You want to change everything. And we were able to, come up. And I still remember, I had a glass panel in my office door, and people would look in and making sure we were okay, because it's like, what's going on? And then the idea for Sonic Tuesday and the global launch came about. And it was like, okay, we now need to rewrite everything to present for tomorrow night, tomorrow morning. We didn't throw away everything that we had done because it was great. And we had tie-ins with Nickelodeon and licensing companies and everything else. But we had to go and, make those secondary to what Sonic Tuesday was all about. And my favorite part of Sonic Tuesday was, the scene where we started doing these crazy puns that were around too. And we actually took Ellen Beth's glass door, a wall, and just started printing them out and posting them. And everybody's coming together and, adding on to it. And we were involving the entire company. They weren't sure why they were doing it, but they were having a lot of fun doing it. And out of that, we were looking for taglines to go and launch with. And out of it, we came up with the launch day, which was Too Fast, Too Cool, Today. Importantly, was the tagline for the tease leading up to Sonic Tuesday. And that was, "Are you up to it?" Because that became a rallying cry. First of all, it was a challenge to every gamer out there. Do you have what it takes to go and beat Sonic 2? But it was also a rallying cry to all of us. Can we go and pull off all of the crazy things that are part of Sonic Tuesday? Air freighting and overnight. And then it was also a rallying cry to our suppliers, and then most importantly to the retailers. And so it was all from that crazy, pun session that we had posting things on Ellen Beth's wall. But yeah, Sonic Tuesday for every single piece was amazing. We presented it the next day, and there was just silence in the room. And finally said to our sales guy, Richard Burns, "What do you think?" And Richard went and took a deep breath, and he says, "I don't know how we're going to pull it off. We're going to have to." And that was it. There was no more discussion. Everybody had bought into Sonic Tuesday, and we tried to figure out what we had to go and do to pull it off. And we started calling people in to the conference room to go and say, "We need you to figure out how to go and air freight this stuff for the same price as doing it by truck and everything else. And how do we go and make it?" And, the plan was so big. But by the time everybody started going and saying, "Well, what about this? What about this? What about this?" it became just bigger and bigger. And Europe signed on and Japan signed on. The stars aligned, and it was quite incredible.
It's crazy that 20 years later, that's just the industry standard now.
It was just the right time to go and do it. And it was also a maturation of the video game industry as a whole. The big entertainment industry back then was movies. And now video games are so much bigger than the entire movie industry. And so it's calling for a lot of the, same methods that the movie companies used to go and do, Friday night premieres and things like that, but even on a bigger scale.
Right. So, we're going to change the angle a little bit here. We're having you on the podcast, and I wish we could almost have you on at a time where things were a little bit more triumphant for Sega in recent news, because about a month ago, Sega of America announced, and it was fairly big news at the time, that they would be downsizing. They, shed 300 jobs. They're changing locations, and also going along with that, they announced that they would be refocusing on just mobile and PC games, or not just mobile and PC games, but emphasizing those two, platforms. And I just wanted to get your take on this. How did you feel when you heard the news?
I was a little shocked, and I think the thing that most shocked me and surprised me, because I think it was very personal, was when they said they were getting out of San Francisco, and was kind of like, okay, what does that mean? And we really didn't have any ties to the San Francisco office because we were down south of San Francisco, but it was still home. So that was a little strange. Do I understand why, digital and mobile is more important? if you look at the sales, yeah. Did I fully understand what the strategy is? No. And do I fully understand what the strategy is today? No, because they really haven't talked about it.
Right.
Tomorrow is the day that actually the reorganization of the games division takes effect, and the new Sega games division. I wish Sega was a super vibrant and successful organization.
Right.
I have nothing but love for Sega. We built something that was very, very strong. And so, I wish that it could have remained that great. But in terms of specific comments, don't really have it.
Yeah, just general sentiments. Are you hopeful for Sega in the future? Do you think that Sega has the potential? Maybe they just need to change how they play the game. Do you think that there is the potential that they could make a comeback?
Well, what's interesting is if you go and things that we don't see. Remember the game Puyo Puyo?
Yes.
And that laugh was kind of what a lot of people thought here.
I hear it's a great Tetris game, though.
Well, Puyo Puyo is humongous in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, I believe, the number 3 overall grossing iOS puzzle game in Japan. And, you don't see that and you don't hear about that. And when you look at some of the other games that they have that they're only doing in Japan and maybe in Asia, they're doing great. They have a phenomenal digital business and smartphone business. So we don't see that as much. I think they've got great IP. There's a blue hedgehog, I think.
I think I've heard of him.
Sonic.
And
the porcupine
who is still around. There's a lot of bits and pieces that we don't go and see.
Sure.
But they're doing some exciting things, and Puyo Puyo shall lead them.
I actually want to ask you a question about Sonic because obviously he's an icon and he's still being used consistently, but a lot of people that I know have complained that maybe they're using Sonic not in the best ways as far as the games that are coming out, and because he's a recognizable figure, I think it's assumed, well, he'll sell X amount of copies just because everyone knows who Sonic is, but clearly that hasn't always been the case. So do you think with icons like Sonic is less sometimes more in that situation?
I think the answer is the name of the game is the game. That's
I've heard that before.
I know.
Yeah, I think I read that somewhere, actually.
Yeah.
That's what it all comes down to, is give me a phenomenal gaming experience. It doesn't have to be the Hedgehog. It could be Puyo Puyo. And that's the important part of what it's all about, is the gameplay experience. And it's not just, can you do it, but it's I remember a tweet the other day from Indie Gamer Chick, who talked about the need to go and also have that emotional reaction when playing a game. You give them that, the word of mouth is going to go and get out there about this is something that, you should check out. That's what we strive to go and do all the time. And as we were doing development phase, people think, okay, a year in advance, you go and put out a marketing plan, and this is going to be our number one title, and this is going to be our number two title, and so it shall be. Yeah, we did those things because you need to have a plan from somewhere. But as you're going along in development, and I would be in Japan, every month and a half playing and looking at what was happening in development of new games. And then the stuff that we were doing at SOA, we had weekly meetings on what's happening. And a title that you thought was going to go and be your number 3 title, an A++ title, just ain't making it. It ain't coming along. And so you have to go and rejigger things. I think that there are companies that wouldn't do that. It's kind of like we planned for it to be the number 3 game, and so therefore we're going to go and do a huge TV campaign, or we're going to go and do a big social media campaign or a grassroots campaign. And the fastest way to go and kill a bad title is with good advertising.
Interesting.
And because the word gets out, and the word gets out, even faster now.
Yes.
It used to be that the time for something that happened in Japan to get to the U.S. was 30 to 45 days, and that was back in the Genesis days. And now it's about 30 to 45 milliseconds. And people are happy to go and say what's good and what's not so good. And that's why it's important to know the games that you're going to go and do. Marketing shouldn't just be a checklist of, okay, we got to do this, we got to do this, we got to do this, we got to do this. Okay, done, launch. It starts off with, and the marketing people, need to know the game as well or better than the people who are actually producing it, and the producers that are there. What's exciting about it? What are the top 3 things that you want everybody to know about this game? And get them excited. And also you need to know, in reality, what is the quality of the version that you're going to go and ship? Is it worthy of, a Sonic Tuesday marketing campaign, or is it worthy of something that, you don't advertise, you just advertise back in those days in a video game magazine? So it becomes a very fluid situation. But that was part of the fun, because it was great going and doing these wild and wonderful marketing campaigns, and Genesis does what Nintendo don't, and welcome to the next level, and all of those great things. But if the payoff of the person spending 40 or 50 hard-earned dollars or begged for dollars from their parents. If the game isn't any good, that's what's happening. That's why we liked rental, and Nintendo hated the rental business, because what we found is if a person rented a game and thought it was great, it actually improved the possibility that they were going to go and buy the game. If the game sucked, not so much. So what it did was it raised the bar not only for our titles, but more importantly, it raised the bar for all of our third parties. Is your game going to go and reach that quality standard that people are going to want to pay for? So that's why rentals were extremely important to us.
Right. So it's safe to say, you don't really think that the characters sell the games.
I wouldn't say that.
It's the
games that sell the games. The quality of the titles.
Well, no, no.
I mean, there's give and take.
Well, there's a couple of things. Before I get into characters, let me talk about licenses, because we spent a lot of time courting Hollywood to allow us to license their games, and making sure that we had the ability to go and get what were the best licenses on the market. Launching Jurassic Park, which was going to be. Everybody thought was going to be the biggest blockbuster movie, and it was. Or getting the great Disney titles and being able to go and do those. Or, other movies or cartoons which had awareness. Because what those did was it bought you some, helped your reputation and it got you a first look. And it's kind of like, as you know, if you remember the old Toys R Us wall of just these little game things, and people would look at it, and it's going like, okay, Donald Duck Quackshot. Let me take a look at that. And so it'll stop people and get some interest. But the gameplay still has to be good. You know, it's you know, we're doing Spider-Man. Is that, you know, and it's got to live up to the quality of, you know, both the comics and the TV series and the movies.
It's a very high standard the movies have set for Spider-Man.
Hey man, Spider-Man's okay.
But you know, those are important things. And in sports, you know, you want to go and be Joe Montana or David Robinson or Buster Douglas.
I wanted to bring that up somehow.
You know, well, happy to talk about Buster. I was
guy.
I was, you know, after his big win, the next time he was in the ring was with me. So launching the Genesis title.
Oh, thought it was going to be like a director's cut of Console Wars.
No, it wasn't a director.
Al Nilsen has to fight him to sign his licensing rights or something like that.
No, it was in a great sports bar in Chicago that actually had a boxing ring.
Ooh.
And we did
I want to go there.
It
was
was
really cool.
Combining boxing ring and alcohol is a recipe for success.
It was a really cool
That was
bar.
my bachelor party.
That our PR agency, I guess, had found in Chicago. But, you know, so they go and, you know, you want to be Joe Montana and you want to go and be with these people, and it adds something to the game. You know, then there's the characters and that you go and do. You know, it's easy to go and say, hey, Sonic, what a great thing. Well, first of all, most Americans had no idea what a hedgehog was, which made it interesting to go and launch, albeit a 6'3", blue-eyed, not blue-eyed, blue hedgehog. And then, you know, what's a toe jam? What's an Earl? People have no idea what this is, and or as you know, when we were talking with the retailers at Boca Raton, it was like, we want you to play a game about a dolphin.
Yes,
I love that.
What was
That's
his
so
name?
cool.
Reverb? the
Echo.
dolphin?
Oh, it was a joke.
You know, and so what you have to do is you're starting out with nothing, and you have to go and create a love and affinity for these characters. You know, I was really excited that last week, you know, the new Toe Jam and Earl game got fully funded on Kickstarter. Actually got funded on
That's
25%.
huge, yeah.
And you know, one of my favorite character duos of all time. You know, and I still remember the time when Mark and Greg came in to my office and presented it to me. But you have to go and build and establish what's going on. That they want to go and play this game. They're involved in it. They like these characters. You know, are they something that they can internalize? You know,
right.
and that's part of the reason why we defanged Sonic, and we gave him, you know, the little bit more of an attitude, to go and make him more memorable and, you know, more lovable, backed up by just a phenomenal game.
Right.
So you know, they go hand in hand. But, you know, yeah, it's a combination of having both that great character, but also that great gameplay behind it.
So I want to quickly ask you about Sonic specifically, because you mentioned, you know, you guys made Sonic kind of spunky, and when, you know, Sega of Japan originally sent Mr. Needlemouse over to you, it's sort of, you know, famously documented in Console Wars, the reaction that kind of went around the office as everyone was like, oh dear, like, what is this thing? You know, it has like a, you know, very chesty girlfriend on his arm. What was her name? Madonna?
Madonna.
Yeah. So, you know, like, it was just kind of like, oh boy.
Well, you know, Console Wars doesn't really give the full story behind Sonic. And, because we never really knew him as Mr. Needlemouse, and how Sonic first came into my life. The first person at SOA to ever see Sonic was Shinobu Toyota, our executive vice president. And one day he comes in and calls me into the conference room and closes the door, which was very strange. Am I getting fired? Who knows? And then he goes and says, Mr. Nakayama, the head of Sega, has chosen you for a task. Oh, no. Though I have to say, the last time Mr. Nakayama had chosen me for a task was to go and be the liaison with Michael Jackson on Moonwalker. But
not bad.
That wasn't bad. So it was Shinobu goes and explains about, the Mascot Contest that Sega had. And I was like, oh, no, they had a contest to choose a character. A mascot? Sure, fine, whatever. And he goes, but what was very interesting and what was very perceptive on Mr. Nakayama's part was he realized that in order for this mascot to work, it had to sell in the U.S. And so they had come up with two concepts, and they were happy with both of them, and they basically said the decision is yours. You choose which one is going to go for the U.S. And he opened up this manila folder and pulled out two drawings. And the first one was these egg-shaped characters. They kind of look like Weebles Wobble, but they don't fall down.
Yes.
And it was just like, boy, this is very preschool. But I could understand why they'd work in Japan. And it was a good character for Japan. And then the second one was Sonic the Hedgehog. What the hell is a hedgehog? And it had the rock band there, and it had his girlfriend Madonna, who looked like kind of Marilyn Monroe. You've said that there's been pictures of him. I haven't seen the exact same images that I was shown, and it was only one image. There was no gameplay. There was no description of what they were going to do with it. It was just, we're happy with these two characters.
Right.
And Shinobu said, it's your choice. I chose the lesser of two evils, which was Sonic. And that's how the choice was made. And then Shinobu also showed it to Mike Katz, and Mike wasn't very excited about either of them.
I heard my cats. That's an odd target demographic, but I mean, you guys.
We'll let the cat decide.
So it was interesting from there, and I never expected anything to come from it. And the first time I saw something was months later when I was in R&D in Japan, and I just saw this blur on a development system in black and white, and it was like, "What's that?" and they showed me this hedgehog thing, and it's like, wow, amazing, And then they took me over to another dev system and showed me the backgrounds for Green Hill Zone. And it's like, okay, is it possible on the Genesis to have that speed and that quality of graphics? And Naka and his team went and said, yeah. And it was like, okay. And then I went and told everybody about it. Oh, by the way, when I said chose Sonic, I said two things. Get rid of the rock band, because music is a very particular thing, and you don't want somebody not liking your game because they don't like the music.
Interesting.
And two, get rid of Madonna / Marilyn Monroe, because it was like, I just don't need that trouble.
Perfect reason.
Well, it's kind of like, okay, who's going to sue me first, the estate of Marilyn Monroe or Madonna?
It's a race.
And so, those were the things. But then, I started talking, when I got back to SOA, I started talking up, you ain't going to believe what is happening. And then we got an EEPROM, and we kept it very close. So it was probably just the executive team who we showed it to initially. And then, we started going and saying, okay, here's what we really need to start doing with the character. Doing those, so as Madeline, Tom, and myself, okay, he had fangs. Okay. It's interesting that you don't see any pictures of him from way back then. And people go, he never had fangs. We can't find anything. Well, it's well-hidden artwork. He did have fangs. And we needed to go and, make him more acceptable for a more global audience.
Sure.
And not just for the U.S., but for Europe and around there. And SOJ was not happy. The Sonic team wasn't happy. But Nakayama went and said, we need the sales in the U.S., and so follow what they said.
So I have to ask about Sonic in particular. Do you think, like, you said that you guys really sort of created Sonic to be a Mario killer, and that you also you needed him to be incredibly popular with not just children, but teenagers, and really just a very wide demographic. And so, he had, where a lot of characters at the time were very child-friendly. Sonic was a bit more pushing the edge. He was, he was a little bit snarky. He had a bit of attitude to him. And really, you used a lot of sort of 90s stylings in inspiring Sonic, and this extends even beyond just the games themselves, but into Sonic as a character, like the cartoons and stuff like that. He was very much like a rebel. Do you think that when you create characters who are so strongly tied to the current sort of what's the word I'm looking here for?
Zeitgeist.
Zeitgeist.
The current attitude of
the current attitudes and trends of a decade. Is it hard to create a character that lasts beyond when a lot of that stuff starts to fall out of fashion?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think of Mario.
Mickey Mouse was that way.
Sure.
I'm not familiar with this Mario you're talking about.
It's because you guys killed him.
Who is that heretic?
Ago.
Let's get him out of here. No, but I have to wonder, because Nintendo, infamously Nintendo was very fast and loose with Mario licensing in the early 90s. And, there are things like the Super Mario Bros. Movie and the Mario cartoons and Mario at the Ice Capades and like things that you look at now and you're like, oh boy. And I think, Nintendo reined in on that very quickly after a while. And like, do you think that because Mario is such a sort of a vessel of a character, he's very ambiguous. He's Italian, but he doesn't really have lines of dialogue, any of those things. Do you think that strengthened him as a brand?
Rather than addressing that Mario guy,
We don't speak
I
about
love
him.
it. I love the dedication.
when we were developing Sonic, we weren't going around saying, okay, how is this going to go and fit into the zeitgeist of the 2010s?
Sure.
Yeah. And what you do is you do what is right and appropriate for today and near term. The other thing is that we had a secret weapon, which was Tom Kalinske, who understood and how to go and create a character so that they have legs, not just legs that go at supersonic speed, but legs. The other thing is, one of the questions that I'm often asked, and you guys haven't asked it yet.
We can.
Is
send it in the chat, and then we'll just make it seem like we're ahead of the game on that
Act
one.
surprised.
Sure.
What?
Is what do you think of all these reboots?
I was getting there.
That was one we had.
One of the Facebook groups, I think yesterday, went and did this wonderful article about Sonic through the ages and the changes. I don't have a problem with rebooting a character. I don't have a problem with doing some slight changes.
Like throwing a bandana on, for instance.
Or perhaps a scarf?
Well, that's where I kind of stop.
Scarves are too much.
And by the way,
I remember...
this isn't a New York City fashion show.
Hold on, I need to file a trademark.
What is this avant-garde fashion trend? He has a piece of fabric wrapped around his neck.
Well, people have asked me to comment. A lot of people have asked me to comment on, what I think about Sonic Boom and what do I think about the other characters' changes to Sonic. And the only public statement, well, I said I don't have a problem with change, but the only public statement that I will make is get rid of the damn scarf. And I just did the PAX East conference a couple of weeks ago, and to about 550 people, and I said that, and it was like I thought I was going to get a standing ovation.
There's like some guy who works for Sega in the back. Well, fine.
and it was that is the only public comment that I will make about Sonic Boom.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I don't have a problem with, I'm not sure how scarves fit into the 2010s.
Yeah, that's true. It's not necessarily the zeitgeist that we've got going on right now. But
I just don't understand.
I don't know about you guys, but I wear my scarf year round.
I sleep in it.
Yeah, it's great.
Scarf
It's a
pajamas.
choking hazard, but it's great. It's worth it to stay on top of fashion.
But you're not the world's fastest video game character, so it doesn't.
You'd almost have to imagine that's a liability because he's running so fast. What if that scarf gets caught on something?
Oh my goodness,
guys! Someone
it's a
write an
safety
email.
hazard.
Draft an email.
And when I was at Comic-Con, it was just so exciting to see all of the cosplay of people dressed as Sonic.
Yeah,
and that was so cool.
It's got to be tough to pull off.
And there wasn't one of them who was wearing a scarf. I just want to say that. I'll just throw that out there.
Maybe in 20 years that will be how people remember him. Hopefully not.
How many of them had chili dogs?
What does that have to do with anything?
There was a Sonic iteration that was obsessed with chili dogs.
Oh, okay.
I feel like those are just things where who's making these characters tries to find something that
unique
can be like
something
a
relatable,
little quirk that people can attach to.
Chili dogs are Sonic's favorite meal.
Mm-hmm.
No,
is that
in what
still true?
I believe it's from Nathan's Hot Dogs. I believe he's that specific, but I don't.
It was an endorsement.
I could be.
That makes sense.
Sonic sounds like a sellout. I'm just kidding.
Hey man, I tuned into this.
Suddenly, Al's portrait just goes blank. It's like
I tuned into the
Al's
Sega's All Stars with the Kids Spectacular the other day, and that was awesome. I gotta give you guys props, whoever came up with that. I think if I were a kid, that was a little bit before my time. I'm an '89 baby.
I didn't hear what you said. What did you?
I forget the name. It's the Sega All Star, the Kids, the Spectacular.
The Sega Superstar Challenge.
There it is. That was awesome, and I can imagine doing that as a young kid who was in love with Full House and Home Improvement, to get all of that together and to do it for charity and to promote Sega and Sonic at the same time.
It was a great idea. It wasn't our idea. It was a man by the name of Richard Rubsek, who was a TV producer, who had this idea to go and do it and brought it to us. And we just loved what it could go and do. And, we just had a great time down at Universal Studios, meeting, all of these, TV superstar kids and also their parents, which the parents were really cool too. So it was a fun time, and, it was just part of our strategic media plan of how to go and get some, a half hour of dedicated airtime just about Sega.
Totally. So you mentioned just a little while ago, being at PAX. Was it PAX and Comic-Con?
Did PAX East a couple of weeks ago. Did Comic-Con last year. Portland Retro Gaming Expo.
So you've been at these expos, seeing on sort of the ground floor, an opportunity that I'm sure, lots of people wish they had.
And we're going
to have to ask. That's awesome. Well, are you going to PAX Prime this year?
Don't know. It's
okay.
You
let me know, because I'll seek you out and I'll shake your hand.
We were invited to PAX Prime last year when we were at Comic-Con, and we met the PAX guys. And it was Labor Day weekend, and we already all had plans, and we just couldn't pull it off. But they were kind enough to invite Blake and I to PAX East. And we don't have anything on our calendars right now. But it's amazing.
Totally. Okay.
And if you want to know about when we're going to do it, follow me on Twitter.
There it is.
There it is.
Al Nilsen.
There's the plug.
Al Nilsen. So ALNILSEN.
SEN.
Yeah, you got to follow him on Twitter, guys. You got to.
Good.
But so what I wanted to ask about these conventions specifically is, so you're kind of there, on the ground floor, looking at the machine that is the gaming industry, and you're back here. You were there, a couple weeks ago at PAX, and I want to know, to you, like, what is the biggest change that you've noticed from doing CESs in the '90s to seeing what this PAX is now and how it's changed and grown? Like, what was even just one thing that really stood out to you?
Well, the big difference between the two is who they're focused on.
Sure.
CES is not CES and E3, are not focused on consumers. They are focused on retailers because you're selling your products to them.
Sure.
And secondarily, but almost as important as selling to retailers, is you're meeting with journalists. And and it's not journalists just from the U.S. It's journalists from all over the world who want to go and do it. I would spend half of my time at a show in a back room meeting with Toys R Us and Walmart and all the other retailers and sitting in on those meetings, and the other half on the show floor with a camera or a microphone or a reporter with a notebook open, doing an interview and showing off the games so that the consumers could go and do it. The excitement about all of these shows, whether it's PAX or the Retro Gaming Expo or all the retro shows or Comic-Con, it's about consumers. It's about game players. It's about people who love the characters, who love the TV shows. And that is what's really exciting, because that is something we really didn't get, a broad opportunity to do. One of the nice things that happened, and I believe it was in the CES days, was they tried, I think, for 2 years, making the last day a open to the public day. And a lot of companies would go and, kind of do it call security and let's try to keep this low key. And we were really excited. We'd be out on, the show floor going and talking to as many people as we possibly could, and hearing what they wanted to do. And who knows, maybe if you found me, I might be holding a pair of the Sega VR glasses in my hand.
What?
And it was like, and people would just go crazy. It was just like, and it's just like we wanted to go and meet them. And that's what I really love about today is consumers are getting closer to companies and to marketers. And marketers and companies are able to get closer to the people who actually care about their products. And I think that's very exciting. And,
for sure.
And having, us pioneers of the video game industry,
there should be a badge
being brought back in, is really cool. As I said, when before we started the podcast, when we went to Comic-Con, Tom Kalinske and I thought that maybe 40 people would show up for our panel. And it ended that it was a full room and they had to close it because of fire regulations.
That's awesome.
And so people had to go to it. And it's kind of why, Tom and I are doing, podcasts such as yours and these events, because we're happy to tell these stories, but it's also exciting. At one of the shows, somebody brought a Pico system in its box for Tom to sign.
Wait, like unopened?
That's awesome.
Unopened. And,
Wow.
That's incredible.
And it's Tom's favorite product of all time.
Sure.
Sign it, and I've signed countless Genesis systems and cartridges and T-shirts. Thankfully, I haven't had to sign any body parts.
Thankfully, unfortunately.
That's like such a
That's right. That's how I know I've made it.
catch-22.
all because of Console Wars.
That's
and it's all
awesome.
because of Blake Harris.
Right on.
Yeah,
Good old
absolutely. Okay, so, you were at PAX, and obviously PAX is very consumer focused, but PAX is also a place where you're going to see a lot of a very, probably to you especially, new breed of people, YouTubers, people like us kind of, who are like independent press in a way. And really, like, in the last few years, there's been this explosion of people who do their own YouTube content, making even millions. The biggest YouTube channel is a gaming channel, and while he doesn't really deal in sort of journalistic, quality stuff, he's still, people look to him for his opinions on things. As someone who worked in video game marketing, was there ever an analog to that at your time in Sega before the advent of YouTube? What about, like, even celebrities? Like, did you ever have to, like, obviously you guys worked with celebrity endorsements and things like that, but was there ever, I don't know if there was ever any sort of translation between those two?
It's yes, there were lots of celebrities, we'd be surprised at when we'd go to a E3 show or a CES about who would call us up wanting a meeting. And it was like, okay, he just won an Oscar. And it was like, okay. And then also the Sega Superstar Kids, where it was just, we started having, relationships with these people. They would call us up. And then when we did Sonic Tuesday, it's like, yeah, I'll come and do it. And so that was there. But I don't think there's necessarily the analog to today, and part of that is the immediacy of being able to go and something starting with a tweet or being on a YouTube channel or being on a podcast. There's nothing that had that immediacy back then. The closest analog was doing a TV interview where it would be there, or the time I was on Entertainment Tonight. But it's not the same thing. It doesn't have the same immediacy. It doesn't have the same reach. But I would have relished having that back in the Genesis days. Number one way we would be talking to gamers other than our TV commercials was getting our story told in Electronic Gaming Monthly or Video Games Computer Entertainment or GamePro, which is where people were reading. But you'd sit down with an editor and it would be 45 to 60 days until the story came out.
Sure.
But that doesn't mean that we didn't have a very strategic approach to how we would go and deal with them over those time frames, because that was part of how we communicated. And if we had social media back then, we would have modified the strategy appropriately. But it's also part of having a great team, having EBVB.
Right.
And the rest of our PR team, making sure that we were getting the message out there with the right messaging at the right time, and also keeping everybody happy. And that was part of the hardest part. Was we wanted to make sure that we had Sonic on the cover of every video game magazine.
Mm-hmm.
Never got Nintendo Power until a few years ago.
Well, they're gone now, so good riddance.
But it was how to go and keep them happy, and how to go and I had spreadsheets, which was okay, EGM's getting this game shot, and this new feature is going to go to Video Game and Computer Entertainment, and it was just how do we go and keep everybody happy? And it's like, okay,
right.
I'm doing this cover this month, this cover that month. So it was much more strategic, but I probably say, if we had social media back then, that would also have been a very strategic outlet for us.
For sure. So there's the indie side of press, but the other big thing that we've seen now is obviously indie gaming, which has become this huge explosion now. But it also, you're seeing a shift in the way that people make games, because before it was these big teams, often supported by this massive infrastructure of PR and marketing firms and all the executive help and everything that they needed. And now it's some guy in his basement who's putting a game together and he puts it up on the iTunes store, and tomorrow he wakes up and he's a millionaire in some instances. Do you think, or as someone who's worked in marketing for so long, these are now people who find themselves, in a corporate environment, you're the programmer. You just come to work, you program, you go home. But now these people are programmers, marketers, art directors. They have so many hats that they wear. As a marketer, do you have any advice that you would want to give to those people? From a marketing standpoint?
First, do the best game that you can. That's going to go and make people's heads going up and say, wow, I want to do this, and I want to go and play it, and I want to have a great experience. And then just go and figure out every possible way to go and get your name and the name, or actually the name of your product out there, to go and get awareness. Try to break the rules. The thing and this is for all marketers, whether you're doing corporate marketing or indie marketing, is throw the checklists out. What is right for each individual product? How are you going to go and make things exciting? Too much of marketing is done by checklists, and I don't consider that marketing. That's there. I wish I knew more about the indie gaming market. I find it very exciting in terms of, one, having all those people doing it, and also, coming up, with games that will go in and excite. I wish we had that back in the Sega days, because I think there would be some really innovative ways that we could go and work together for both of our benefits. And that would have been very, very exciting.
Yeah. I feel like Sega, looking back, I feel like Sega would have been the company that if indie gaming started in the 90s, Sega would have been the one to really capitalize on that, where even now we're seeing Nintendo being very slow to the gun with Nintendo, or with indie gaming and indie development.
Well, what I find interesting, it's every year I would go on and do my product plan. And I knew what Japan was working on, and I knew what Europe was working on, and what we were doing, and what licenses and things like that. And I always had a couple of slots for, the WTF slots, and it's like, what are these things? Who in the world are they? This could be huge, or it could be the biggest failure in the world. And because if you don't take a risk, no risk, no reward. And the first title that filled one of those slots was Toe Jam and Earl. Hi, I'm going to do this game, okay? And it's different every time. And you know how fast Sonic is? Well, go 180, because you just got these guys loping around. And you got this weird funk music that goes there. And here's what the music's going to be about. And then the people who are enemies, you've got an opera singer and a guy with a lawnmower. And then there's a carrot that's walking around. And he could be good or bad for you. And then there's presents, and then there's really good food, and then there's moldy food. And by the way, did I say that this is the slowest moving video game you've ever seen in your life?
Sounds like my last family reunion.
What does that mean?
And it was like, okay.
Steve.
What?
Depressing.
But, I loved what the characters looked like. I loved the vision that Greg and Mark had. And it was like, yeah, we got to do this. And I don't think that there's a lot of companies that would have gone and said, yeah, I'll bet on that. You know,
That game does seem like it was a very Sega choice.
It wasn't necessary. It was, we got to go in and take the leap and be able to go and do that. And it was really great. We didn't know if it was going to be a big success or a failure. It did about 90% of what we thought it was going to go and do. I think it was a top 5 title for us, so that was a big win. You know, and then you have titles, you know, Echo the Dolphin, and if you read Console Wars, the story in the Italian restaurant is exactly how it happened.
It just gives such an indie vibe to it. The way that Sega was willing to kind of go against the grain of what a typical indie game looks like.
And that game was so like explorative in a way that a lot of games weren't. Like, this is a game that's just going to be an experience, man. It's about a dolphin, and he's just swimming in the oceans.
With Toe Jam and Earl, I got to see what Toe Jam and Earl looked like. There were no visuals, okay, and it was just Ed Annunziata, you know, for 45 minutes just telling me his entire vision in detail that was more detailed than any photo could ever go and do. And I knew that if he had pulled off half of what he told me he was going to do, we'd have a phenomenal title. And he not only pulled off everything that he wanted to do, but even took it to the next level. And those are the risks that you want to go and take. But he had to go through kind of the back door with Hugh Bowen to go and get me to listen to this, because I know if it went through our regular product development cycle, there would be people sitting there going, "A dolphin?" It was just, you know, it was just the right thing, and that's what I always liked, was give me something that could be a big win or a big failure, but is something that people are going to go and remember, and they've never seen it before. And that was one of the things we were willing to go and do. And you know, I remember addressing a meeting of our third parties, and they said, "How do we be a hit in the U.S.?" And I went and I said, "Cancel all of your shooters." And the room went crazy. It's like, "What do you mean? You know, I've got 3 of them planned." And I said, "Is it the best shooter that the world has ever seen?" "No." "Okay, so why is it going to go and make the sales projections that you think?" You know, there's 141 shooters available for Genesis. We don't need a number 142 through 200. And that was a hard message to go and get across to people. They said, "But shooters sell." I said, "Yeah, 3 shooters sell, the rest don't." And unless you've got the greatest one in the world, it ain't going to happen.
You know, I gotta stop you right there, because I just had this sudden like epiphany of how important that message is for so many indie developers too. Because one of the things that I would say is a downside of this indie development, which is largely positive, but the downside is that anytime there is a major breakthrough game, there are now, you know, companies will really weigh the options and consider, okay, do we want to make a game that really sort of apes what this game is doing? And they'll weigh it all down, and if it doesn't come out as a net positive for them, they'll walk away from it. But indie gamers don't have that same type of, a lot of times they don't spend that, you know, same type of effort just in thinking whether or not they should do it.
You don't have millions of dollars influencing your decision.
Right, so you have these games that are these amazing games, they come out, and then immediately the market becomes flooded with clones. And everyone's trying to jump on that bandwagon. And like that right there was such I feel like if you're wanting to develop an indie game, like listen to Al. He's a wise man.
Stuff.
Well, you asked me before what would my advice be for the indie industry and the indie developers out there? And it comes down to one word, and that's passion. Have a phenomenal passion for your game. You know, understand everything that is there and then pull it off. And,
Absolutely.
you know, I mentioned Toe Jam and Earl. I mentioned Echo the Dolphin. And the passion of Greg and Mark and Ed, they had visualized what they wanted to do and how this was going to be so exciting and great that they were able to go and transform those thoughts that were in their heads into a phenomenal game. And, your instincts go and work so well for you. And Naka and the Sonic team had that same thing when they were developing the Blue Hedgehog. And so if you have that passion, you shouldn't be in the video game business. You should be in the, I'm going to go and create a great game business. And I'm going to go and have that passion and be able to go and do that. And to a certain extent, if you take a look at, Toe Jam and Earl, Mark and Greg were indie developers. And doing this out of their house. But they had this wonderful concept. And when I first met with them, they were able to go and tell me this strange story about this, and it was fully fleshed out. And there was so much more that needed to be fleshed out, but boy, they got the basics down of what this was going to be about. And then the other thought that keeps coming in mind is, Steven Spielberg, his line, "Tell me a story." And, what is the story behind, that great game you're going to do, or that great movie you're going to go and do, or that great podcast you're going to go and do.
Thanks for thinking of us, Al.
I needed it for you.
I was thinking it.
We're in the same category.
And so you need to, that's what it's all about. And that, and if you're passionate, I think you're going to go and make some interesting choices in gameplay and design, things like that. I think to a certain extent that is what separates a lot of the best titles out there from the ones that ain't so hot.
For sure. Okay, so in the interest of time, we're going to end this podcast episode now. But for those of you listening on Twitch, we're going to keep going. Al, you got a little bit more time?
Sure.
Perfect.
Awesome. You're the best. And we're going to answer some of the people's questions from the Twitch chat. For those of you listening to the podcast on YouTube or iTunes or Stitcher, thank you so much for tuning in. We're so happy you decided to spend this hour with us. Al, thank you so much for coming on the show and just regaling us with all this information. It's awesome.
Console Wars. Oh, we're opening up the plug bag.
Yeah, this is the whole part where we just go nuts with the plugging.
Shameless.
Yeah, so Console Wars by Blake J. Harris. This is a book that if you have any reverence, even if you don't, but if you have reverence, just everybody get this book. If you have any reverence,
say the words Nintendo or Sega and your childhood comes to mind at some point, this book should already be in your Amazon shopping bag.
Yeah, if you're interested in wanting to know how the video game industry got to where it is, this is the story of the people who made that happen. You will find so many things that happened in Console Wars, and you will see the repercussions today and now. It is an amazing read. Blake J. Harris is such a great author. He brings the whole story to life. And soon, keep out for it, because soon that is going to be up on the big screen. Mr. Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg are the ones who were writing the screenplay and pushing for that.
Mundo.
Well, it's two things first. Before it reaches major feature film from Sony, it's going to go and be a documentary.
That's true.
You'll be able to see in HD, which is very, very scary.
I can't wait.
All of that vivid detail. So be sure to check those out. You can follow Al Nilsen. Please do at Twitter. That's at Al, so A-L, and then Nilsen, Al Nilsen. And I'm sure he would just be beside himself if you would follow him. You know who would be beside themselves if you followed them would be us three guys here.
We'll take
that's
anything
right.
we can get.
Your dirty social scraps.
Follow us.
Please follow us. Yeah, you can find all the stuff we do at pixelattack.net. That's where we have all of our articles. Stuff goes up daily, new videos on all the latest games. It's awesome. Check it out. You can find us on youtube.com/pixelattackgaming and at pixelattack on Twitter. Travis, say somebody had the inclination.
Hypothetical.
It's
a dream world.
I don't think it'll ever happen, but say someone out there was crazy and thought, I want to follow Travis on Twitter. Where would they go?
Well, they would go to twitter.com/
Thanks for being specific.
I just want to spell it out. Travis.
He's got
Parker
the memorabilia.
M. Look at that! He's got some swag.
Travis Parker M.
Travis Parker M. And if you're listening to this, Al Nilsen is rocking a beautiful Sonic cap right now.
That's amazing. Nevyn, where can people find you at?
You would find me on Twitter at ForkH. That's FORK and the letter H.
That's perfect. And I can be found at Twitter at Stephen Messner. Oh, Stephen Messner. That's with a V and then MESSNER. We would love it. So thank you so much for tuning in. Now, if you're listening to this on YouTube or iTunes or any of that, we are going to keep these questions. We're just going to put it in a bonus episode. So stay tuned for that. That'll be up at the same time this episode will be as well. But we just wanted to break them up so it's a little more digestible for you people who maybe don't have a 3-hour commute. Anyway, so thank you everyone. We love you so much. Have a great evening, and we will see you guys next time.